more about what's happening in the commodity market, especially gold. We have Dnyanada Kulkarni, Senior Research Analyst at Century Financial. Welcome with us. Dinya, the question is related to the price level of the gold. Gold was at 3,250 US dollars per ounce, in addition to the increase in its futures. Now, gold is at the psychological level 3,200. What will take gold to the expectations that it might reach to $4,000 per ounce?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Gold has come down from 3,250 levels to around 3,200. That is because of a temporary improvement in the risk appetite of investors. Because over the weekend, the White House and the Trump administration announced a temporary pause on the tariffs on semiconductors as well as electronic goods, smartphones, computers, etc. However, moving forward, they have stated that these goods are likely to be subjected to separate duties and taxes. So there is a lot of policy uncertainty that remains in place, and even the tariff pause that was initiated recently was just for 90 days. And moving forward, depending on how well the negotiations go between America and the rest of the countries, we will have more clarity in the upcoming months. But policy uncertainty remains very high, and as a result, because of that, the inflation expectations have gone up, and there's a risk of stagflation in the economy, and the risk of a recession has risen to 45%. And because of that, investors are, there's a flight to safety that we can see over the last few months, and that is expected to continue throughout the rest of the year. And because of that, we can see maybe gold prices reaching around 3,700 by the end of the year, and maybe around 4,000 by mid 2026.
We will go back to our guest to talk about gold. Dnyanada Kulkarni, Senior Research Analyst at Century Financial. Today, and from the crisis that hit the markets, we noticed that the investors have a bigger fear from the US assets, specifically the US dollar and the US Treasury bonds. To what extent do you believe that this will give a bigger opportunity for the gold to increase if the central banks continue adopting the gold as a reserve instead of the US dollar?
We've seen this trend going on for the last several years, where central banks around the world have increased their gold holdings steadily, especially since the first quarter of 2022 when the Russia-Ukraine war first happened. Since then, central banks have been adding 1,000 tons or more of gold to their reserves per annum, which is more than twice the annual average over the last decade. And this trend is expected to persist, especially because of the de-dollarization trend that we've observed. Even this year, we've seen that the safe haven appeal of the dollar as well as US treasuries has gone down, because of which there's been a steep sell-off in US treasuries as well as the US dollar index, which has declined 6% year to date. So these trends are expected to continue in the foreseeable future.
Dunya, we took the press conference of Trump, and he was talking about their relation with with Iran, and he said that Iran has to give up on their nuclear weapon, and they must not have nuclear weapons. Are we going to have more appetite on gold in light of such political circumstances?
Yes, absolutely. Because such kind of factors, they increase the geopolitical risk premium, and because of all the tariff uncertainty adding on top of it, we can expect that the investors will have an increased demand for safe haven assets like gold, for instance. And because of the political uncertainty and geopolitical risks, gold is likely to remain well supported.
About silver. Today, even the expectations regarding silver from the investment banks, they're talking about further increase in silver. To what extent are we to fear the silver if the silver price is going down if we get into recession, which will affect the manufacturing sector?
In a recessionary scenario, silver being an industrial metal, we can see a little bit of a decline in the demand for it, because although it has safe haven status, not to the same extent as gold, so probably we could see a little bit of pressure if a severe recession unfolds. But for now, it is holding very close to the $30 to $31 levels. So we've not seen any material decline as of now.
If we are to look into what's happening today in the high risks, where Trump said that he will exempt certain products from tariffs, such as the electronics, smartphones, and laptops, the risk appetite increased, and there is optimism, even if temporary, which serve best, of course, the stability in the US dollar price index. Are we going to be always depending on any statement that Trump says, and by that the markets will move?
So the reason the markets, the risk appetite has improved, even though it is a temporary relief that happened, that is because the products that he's talking about, they constituted for roughly $390 billion worth of US imports as of last year, out of which $101 billion alone came from China. So that constitutes a huge chunk of the market. So when statements like that are made by Trump, the risk appetite considerably improves, and it shows a willingness on his part to negotiate and show a little bit of flexibility in terms of treating each segment of the market separately, and it also gives time for all the countries to negotiate with him.
Dnyanada Kulkarni, Senior Research Analyst at Century Financials, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.